All right, I think we're about ready to get started here. So, hello everyone. Uh, my name is Ryan Podlowski. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Paskill, and welcome to our first session in our Enrollment First websites webinar series. So, we launched the series to make the web process easier, smarter, and hopefully a little more fun. Because let's face it, websites are a lot like tattoos, and once they're out in the world, it's hard to change. I know from personal experience a small back tattoo that had to be covered up by a full back tattoo, but that's for a different day. Here we're talking about websites. Here at Pascal, we've helped institutions across the country build enrollment first digital experiences. And today we're going to show you how to test those sites with real users and maybe even some fake ones, so you can better connect with your prospective students and, of course, drive results. Um, we do have motivational tattoos at the ready. So if you would like those to be mailed your way, just drop your name in the chat during this webinar, and our friend Kathy will make sure you get your tattoo that is luckily temporary. And if you post a pic with the tattoo and tag us on LinkedIn, we're going to enter you to win a $100 gift card. So you can use that for tattoo removal or anything you might need. And then feel free to chat. I'll monitor, I'll interrupt Kelly, try to throw her off her game with anything that comes in the chat, and we can do some questions at the end, but if it fits more in line with what she's talking about, we'll try to squeeze them in there as well. So without further ado, I'm excited to turn things over to today's presenter, and that would be our UX lead and website testing expert, Kelly Kautz. So she's going to walk you through some practical strategies and you can start using today. Plus, we can see what's on the horizon next for user testing. So Kelly, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Ryan. So Ryan shared that story at our rehearsal, and I still haven't figured out if it's true or not. I've
Uh,
worked with Ryan for 15 years now, so I one day maybe I'll find out. But hello, I am Kelly, and I am so excited to be talking about user testing today. It is probably my favorite thing to do on the job. And yet, when I speak with a lot of higher education marketers, they often think of user testing as something that is beyond their reach. Either it's too expensive, or it's too time consuming, or it's just best left to the experts. And I'm here to say that, well, some of those things are true some of the time. It can be expensive, it can be time consuming, and we often help other teams with user testing. It is also something that even small teams with small budgets, small timelines can take on, and can take on in a really effective way. And so I am going to share some tips, tricks, and trends with you to help speed along that process. At the end of the day, we're all judged by things like enrollment numbers and lead applications and lead forms. And user testing can help you improve those hard numbers. But what it can also do is give you a look into real life user behavior. So who are the people who are interacting with your site? What sorts of experiences are they having? You can see that firsthand. And in higher education, a lot of times these user journeys are very high stakes. There's a lot of complexity surrounding what users are trying to do on your site just by the nature of higher education itself. And I've seen in my own user testing firsthand how uh, disjointed user experience or a confusing user experience can really get them down. It can make them pessimistic. It can make them feel like maybe they're just not cut out to do this and to pursue whether that's a degree or a certificate or just reaching out to somebody that they want to get in touch with. And inversely, I've seen how user testing and particularly those positive experiences can give users a sense of confidence, and it can help them feel really excited about this journey that they're going through. And so I'm hoping that if you do choose to use some of these tips and tricks in your own day-to-day work, that you'll get to see that too. You'll get to see firsthand how your work is affecting real life people on your site. And you'll get to feel that same sense of meaning that the work that you do has purpose and it has an impact on the real people who are relying on your sites every day. So before we dive in, I have a quick poll. I just wanted to see where you're at in this user testing world. So, Bo, if you'll go to the next slide, we have a quick question for the audience. How often does your team run user tests? There's no wrong answer. I anticipate a lot of you will say never, but I will see what the results say. And the choices are never, occasionally, when we have a big project, regularly, we have a process in place. Maybe you're a user testing expert already, or maybe you don't know, and that's okay too. So we'll give it just another minute. And then we'll see how the responses are looking.
And if you are on a multi-screen experience, like I was yesterday, the pop quiz or poll might pop up in a different window just to let you know. That was something I learned yesterday.
Yeah, so if you're not seeing it and you have more than one screen, look around, make sure that that's not hidden somewhere. Are we getting any answers? I can't vote. All right, I'm gonna close that out. All right, okay, great. All right, it looks like the majority of folks said occasionally when we have a big project. 27% said never, 13% said regularly, awesome, and 7% said I'm not sure. All right. So that gives us a good baseline. And if you'll go to the next slide, today I'm going to help you with everything that you need to test like a pro. So we'll start by helping you understand your options, what to do when your beautiful website still occasionally makes people cry, how user testing can help, and then testing styles, tactics, and some low-cost, low-time tactics, tools, things that you can use that feel like low-stakes magic. Next, we'll talk about how you can prep for user testing like it's peer-reviewed. So start with a hypothesis. I'll talk about how to design the tests without rigging the results. That's something that I see a lot of people who are really enthusiastic about user testing, but they don't have a lot of experience, can get into the territory of swaying the results. And then they often will look, they'll skew the results. So we'll talk about ways to not do that. And we'll also talk about some budget-friendly incentives to reward people for their time and make them feel appreciated, even if you don't have a budget to spend on those rewards. And then finally, we will talk about testing, learning, and repeating the process. So we'll talk about how to synthesize the results that you get from your user testing and how to socialize them with your teams. We'll talk about fixing what you can't and flagging what you can't. There's always going to be something that you need to take it to a higher pay grade. So we'll talk about tips for doing that and how to test smarter next time, thanks to this time. So always want to be testing, learning, iterating, and repeating the process. Let's start with understanding your options. It's not broken until somebody tries to use it. So I got another quick question for you in the chat. What is the biggest UX issue? If you go to the next slide, you'll see it on the screen on your website right now. So if you want to type your answer into the chat, this may be something that you know is going wrong. You hear about it every day from stakeholders, from students, or it could be just something that you suspect might not be performing at the level it should be performing. Maybe you suspect there's some accessibility issues out there that you worry about. It might be that your site is probably not performing its best on mobile, but you're not exactly sure why. So I'm going on and on. What I mean to say is that this doesn't have to be objectively the biggest UX issue on your website right now. People will have lots of different answers depending on who you speak to, even at the same institution. But
And we
I'm
got
getting
one brave one that came in,
all
Kelly.
right.
So that's the registration for summer and fall are currently hosted on two different platforms, which is
Oh,
The jump for registration is something I know you and I have seen a lot, and making it creating continuity between the site you were on and then you get kicked over somewhere else can certainly cause a lot of issues.
Yeah, we see that a lot in higher ed. Then I'm also seeing content is siloed by department rather than audience. That's a common one as well. Lack of a program directory, broken links. So this brings me to my next point. On the next slide, you'll see that there are the user experience issues that you know about. The stuff you know is broken. So this might be program pages written by faculty, for faculty, tuition info hidden like national treasure. The virtual tour still requires Flash. Have you seen that recently, Ryan? Ryan used to be a Flash developer. User testing turns pain into progress. But there's also the stuff that you don't know is broken, the things that user testing might point out that you didn't know about until you see somebody struggling with a functionality or a page. The mobile nav opens, but it never closes. Screen readers announce image, image, image because you don't have those alt tags and those descriptors in place. Pages approved by 9 board members, still unreadable by 1 teenager. I think we all have those. So user testing can help with both of these categories of user issues. It helps you see how real humans navigate or totally miss your content. Talked about that a little bit in the beginning. It can be really rewarding to see and to experience the good stuff, especially. It helps you make decisions based on evidence, not just opinions. And there are a lot of opinions in higher ed. Spotting where the student journey breaks and fixing it before they bounce off the site, fixing it before it becomes a bigger problem that impacts more users. And of course, it helps you build empathy across teams by allowing you and other team members to watch real users in action. A quick note here on the nuance between user research and user testing. I'm going to be focusing a lot on usability testing. There are things also, surveys are a really good tool to use, particularly for higher ed audiences. They fall more in the user research side of the spectrum, but as you can see, there's overlap. And the most important part here is whether you're doing user research or user testing, or you're not really sure, it's probably some of both. What matters is that you're learning things about your digital experience that you didn't know before. So don't fret the labels. There's a lot of labels, terminology, and jargon in the UX world. But what matters is, what are you learning? How are you using that to better things for your users? And the best part is you don't need a fancy UX lab. You just need a plan. So your plan will probably consist of a testing style, how you run the test. So you might have heard of moderated versus unmoderated user tests. The moderated tests are things that you or someone else will guide the user through. If they complete it on their own using a software or a tool, or it's just a task that they maybe record themselves working through and send you the footage, that's an unmoderated test. There's also qualitative and quantitative tests. I'll be focusing on qualitative tests, so quality. That means you're getting deep insights from a few. You're looking at the quality of the experience. Quantitative tests are measurable insights from many. So that might be if you are looking at data across 300 user sessions or 500 user sessions, it's the big numbers and the trends that those can reveal. Both have their place in user testing. It really just depends on what you're looking to learn and what you're looking to change as a result of that. In addition to testing style, there's also testing tactics to choose. So these are, what are you going to ask your users to do? A lot of user testing, what you traditionally think of user testing, is task-based. So you'll give them a goal and then you'll observe what happens. There's first click user testing, which can be really quick and easy, where you show users a page and you ask, what would you click first? 5-second tests are where you flash a design up for 5 seconds, and then you can ask questions like, what did you see? What do you remember? How might you describe what you saw? And that can be really good for comparing some different design options or headline options, for example, and what impression they leave people with. And then there's also prototype testing, where you can test mock-ups before you launch them and get some real-time feedback before you push them live, make changes. So you're not introducing anything to the environment that might be caught on a user test. These are not a full list of user testing tactics, but these are some quick and easy ones to consider if you are just giving this a try, you're new, you want to see what user testing is like and what you can learn. So next in the plan is a question about AI. So can't AI just do this for me? I know some of you might be wondering, and there's always a lot of development in the AI space. So short answer is yes, of course, AI can do this for you now. AI can do everything. AI can sweep my floor and make weird videos on Sora, but should it test your website? Probably not. And you'll see why on this next slide. So you might have seen tools like synthetic users. These are becoming more common. This one actually looked interesting to me when I first saw it. It's running user testing with AI participants, and the platform is primed to work in a really similar way to real-life user testing. Well, Nielsen Norman Group recently did a comparison of the results from this platform to real-life user tests, and it came up with some interesting results. So on the next slide, you'll see bots do user testing better oftentimes, but it's not a good thing. AI chatbots have a tendency to want to please, and they do not always model human behavior well. For example, Jeff Sorrow and his colleagues found that ChatGPT, for example, was not an acceptable replacement for real users in tree testing. That's a kind of user testing where you are basically testing navigation and click paths, because the AI vastly outperformed most real people. And that's not what you want. You want real results. There is this article, Synthetic Users, If, When, and How to Use AI-Generated Research, or even if you just Google synthetic users, it'll likely pop up for you on Nielsen Norman Group, NNG. It is a really compelling and interesting article. They also compared real user testing transcripts to the synthetic users platform that you saw on the previous slide. And the synthetic user transcript was like the overachiever at school. They answered every question correctly, and they were really positive. And the real users that they interviewed had a slightly different experience. Sometimes they didn't always follow the tasks correctly. And so it goes into a lot of depth about the nuance here. The thing to take away, though, is that this tendency to please is going to give you a lot of validation that might not be true of your real life users. Ryan posted a link in the chat. Thanks, Ryan. So the short answer is you still need real humans, but hey, AI is great at helping you look really prepared. So I do recommend that you create personas with ChatGPT. Experiment with this. I don't go into details about how to do this in this presentation, but there are a lot of good tutorials out there. Just know exactly what the tool can do and what it can't do, what it's good at and what it's not good at. When I created personas just to test this out for myself, I had a really broad swath of user data that I inputted into the tool, and I spent a lot of time crafting a prompt about how the ChatGPT, it was a custom GPT, should interpret that data. So if I just went into ChatGPT without doing that legwork, and I said, hey, pretend you are grad student with 47 tabs open and answer these questions. It might not do a terrible job, but it might also, it will be relying on what's already out there. It probably won't be specific to your users. So there's some nuance there. It can, however, be good for, say you just need to ideate a couple of headlines, or you want to get some sense of how a piece of copywriting might resonate with one audience versus another. It's a place to start when you don't have those real users to ask. You can also use AI to generate user tests and prompts, whether that's writing the first draft, or if you have a draft, plug it in and say, hey, pretend you are an expert user tester. What feedback would you give to me? What challenges do you see in this? Avoid asking it to validate your assumptions, because it will, as you've seen on the previous slide. But if you ask it to challenge you and to reflect and respond to your ideas, then you might get good stuff. And finally, AI can be really good at helping you summarize test notes and session recordings too. So I will often take transcripts and feed those in, and then I'll synthesize the transcripts myself. I'll pull out the trends, the findings, and then I compare that to what ChatGPT gives me, just to see if there's anything that I didn't dive into deeper, or if there's something that it caught that I didn't. So I try to not do that my very first look, so that I'm not being swayed by what ChatGPT is spitting back out. But sometimes it can help you uncover insights that you didn't catch in your first review. All right, so this is one of my favorite tools for UX. This is not specifically user testing, but it is pretty good. It is called Microsoft Clarity. Let me know if anybody in the audience actually uses Microsoft Clarity now. This is a tool. There are similar tools out there too. I'll list them, but it gives you behavior recordings. What are people doing on your site? It lets you watch anonymous user behavior like a benevolent UX overlord, and you see where they click, how far they scroll, what content they ignore entirely, which pages cause instant drop-offs. And you can see firsthand with each user who comes to your site how mobile users experience your site as well. So what I love about this tool is that there's a very intuitive dashboard it gives you, and then there's some typical metrics that you might see in Google Analytics, but you can click into some of those metrics and immediately segment the user recordings from your site to just see, for example, all the people who rage clicked on something on your site. Yes, that's a technical term now. It's when, yes, and it's free. Thank you, Ryan. It's when you click on something multiple times because it's just not working for you and it's driving you crazy. We've all done it. It will automatically flag the rage clicks, and then you can watch all of them and see, is it just because somebody's internet connection wasn't working that day, or is it because there is an issue on your site that you need to address right away? So it's a really powerful tool. It's totally free. You just install a code on your site. And one thing to note too is make sure that all of your cookie banners are in place too, because it does capture data. You want to make sure that you're transparent about that, but it doesn't capture personally identifiable information. In fact, it will, if there's a phone number on your site and you're watching user recordings, it'll blur that out too. It thinks anything, it's a little bit, it blurs out a lot of things that it thinks might be personally identifiable information. So that's one of my favorite tools, and that can give you insights that could be similar to user testing because you're seeing user behavior in real time. All right, so we talked about tools, tactics, how to plan, and now you want to prep like it's peer reviewed, because let's just see what happens is not a valid methodology. All right, so here's another question for you. Answer in the chat. What do you want to learn through user testing? This can be vague. It's okay. If you just want to know more about a particular audience, let us know in the chat. If there is a very particular page and you're curious about if a call to action is being seen or not seen, let us know that too. And I'll give you a moment to type in your responses, but if you want to go to the next slide a while, we'll talk about how to get to really clear insights with user testing. You want to start with a clear question. So, for example, can prospective students find the tuition information easily from the homepage? Next, all right, I'm seeing some questions and things coming in. You'll want to make a thoughtful guess. We believe the tuition information is buried in the nav. This is an assumption or a thought or an instinct that you might have. So we think people are struggling to find it. So clear question, thoughtful guess, and then next is know what you're going to do next before you test. So I'm not talking about identifying the answer and the solution before you test, but know what you're going to do with the information that you get. What decision is that going to help you make? If users struggle to find the tuition information, like we hypothesize they will, we're going to capture where they do look. We're going to trend that, and then we're going to use that to inform our navigation updates. So some of you have asked in the chat, go back to that window here. Where are people getting lost during the enrollment process? Identify UX pain points and time to completion for key tasks. That's a great one because there's metrics associated with that. For where people are getting lost during the enrollment process, you may be able to spot some trends in your analytics, in your Microsoft Clarity account, and then use those to inform exactly where you're going to user test to get more specific insights.
Hey, Kelly, one of the things I know we've struggled with in the past is enrollment process might be multiple systems. So it's not just your website, you're kicking over to Slate or you're kicking over somewhere else to complete that process. And you might not have consistent analytics across those platforms. Ideally, you would, so you can see a user journey all the way through, but sometimes you don't. Obviously, one thing you can do is install Clarity on each of those platforms and follow it through. But if you can't, something like a video recording or something like that is super helpful. And I've seen you use that before when we have disparate systems that we don't have time to connect all the plumbing for them. But, a video and a user going through that journey in a recording can be super valuable in that type of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is really hard, even if you are an expert in analytics and tracking codes, to stitch that together in a way that gives you the clear view that a user test could give you. All right, if you go to the next slide. I'm going to give you a quick user testing checklist. And once you've identified what you want to learn, your hypothesis, what you plan to do with that information, you want to choose your testers. So aim for 5 to 7 users to start. Again, this is qualitative. So if you wanted to do quantitative, it's a different ballgame. But 5 to 7 users is just enough to spot patterns. Some people even say 3 to 5. So you don't need a lot of people. One colleague that I worked with once said, if you have one user test or one survey response, that's one piece of information that's more than what you had before you had it. And they said it in a much more eloquent way than that, but it's true. And I think about that a lot. The risk, of course, in smaller sample sizes is you could get one response, but then the next 4 responses are entirely different. But if you aim for 5, 7 users, you're going to identify the majority of the usability issues that people run into. This has actually been tested, and it's shown to uncover, I think, 80% of most issues with this small sample size. Prioritize your actual audience. So this is not a place where you want to invite colleagues to come and take a user test unless you are testing the experience for your colleagues. I have a lot of clients who want to do this, but they're going to give you very different results than your target audience, whether that is prospective students or whether it's donors or community members. Try to get it as close as you can. And think about diversity too. That can be challenging with a small sample size, but think about the different people within your target audience. Are there first-gen students, adult learners, exhausted parents, commuters? So as much as you can, if you can get a diverse audience that is more representative of the whole, you'll get better, clearer insights. After choosing your testers, you're going to want to prepare your user testing script. So write out the task or tasks. It doesn't have to be more than one. It can just be one. And the prompts. Keep it simple and scenario based. So think about real goals, no trick questions, and have a plan, but also stay flexible. I've run lots of user tests that I've had to revise a lot after the first user test because I realized that my instructions weren't as clear as I thought they were, or my questions didn't really get the insights that I was looking for. So you have to keep it flexible, but you also want to keep it as consistent as possible. And when you say, I'll give you an example of tasks too. So it may be you'll want to have them start in the same spot, even if it's just Google. You might want to have somebody start on Google or start in front of a computer and say, you're looking for a program that you heard about in business and show me how you would find it. So that could be a sample task. It may be very specific. So you want to enroll for our new student orientation. Where would you go? What would you do? And before you run the actual test, also think about incentives. This is a really good way to get more participants. Think small. So it can be a $5 coffee card. It can be bookstore swag. If you don't have budget, it might be resume credit or public kudos. Just treat their time like it matters because it does. And it's more likely to get them to say yes the next time you need a user tester as well. All right, so we've done the planning, the prep. Now it's time to do the test itself. Test, learn, and repeat. So I mentioned I want to talk a little bit about how to run a good test without skewing the results. This can be really hard, especially if you're a people pleaser like I am. You don't want to watch users struggle. You don't want to watch them have a hard time. But you have to, and that's where you get the best insights. So prepare yourself to observe them, don't instruct them. I was editing myself when I said earlier I was changing my instructions. You really shouldn't be giving instructions in user tests. You should be presenting them with a task and then seeing what they do. You're going to learn a lot, and you're going to have a lot of your own assumptions challenged in the process. Don't over-explain. You will be tempted to, but the more you talk, the less you learn. If you are talking, a really good thing to do during user testing is encourage people to think out loud. There will be times when you have to say, think out loud, tell me what you're thinking 100 times in the same user test, but this is where the gold is. If you ask questions, make sure to keep them neutral. So what are you noticing? Not, do you like this? Or what do you not like this? That seemed kind of difficult for you. Make sure you're not leading them. And again, consistency is always good. Consistent prompts lead to better patterns. So the last one is embrace the silence and the friction. Those awkward pauses are where you're going to learn the most. All right. So now you've got test results. What do you do with them? Start by looking for patterns, not outliers. Don't redesign your site because one person clicked on the wrong thing. But if 3 out of 5 people missed it, that's probably a problem you want to investigate. You have to be careful with stakeholders on this one too, because if you start to circulate the results of a user test and you have an outlier that did really poorly, as we all do, um, you might have stakeholders who are really fixated on those single one-off cases. So I'll talk a little bit on a later slide about how to circulate these. But as you're interpreting them, look for the patterns, the trends, not those one-off outliers. Zoom out before zooming in. So don't fixate on those small moments until you've seen the bigger pattern. Don't look at single clicks, look at the larger user journey and what you can learn from that. And don't look at a single user journey, look at the 5 that you've gathered or the 7 and what you can learn from those trends. Let actions speak louder than words. So we talked about the positivity bias in AI programs. People are the same way, and you can go into a rabbit hole looking at positivity bias in UX testing. There's been a lot of research and statistics around just how much this skews the results. But the only thing you need to know is that it's real. It will be a little bit more positive than the experience users are having in real life because users are more polite. They want to please the tester. So pay attention to what they're doing, not just what they're saying, and you're going to get the full picture. And finally, use your findings to plan the next test. Document what worked, what didn't work, what you really liked about your approach and what you want to do differently the next time, where you want to follow up and get more information. All right, progress over perfection. Do what you can and then hand off the rest with well-labeled notes. So fixing what you can, this might mean quick content edits. You might be able to go into the CMS and fix a headline or a call to action. You might be able to tweak the navigation, layout adjustments. If you can swap one component for another and reduce friction, do it. Misleading or jargon-heavy copy or things that are outdated. All of those might be, depending on your situation, within your purview to fix. You'll also uncover things that aren't in your ability to fix. And these are the things that you want to flag, move them up the chain, document the issues that they're causing, but then also focus on what you can do. So this might be a broken back-end workflow. Accessibility compliance risks. This is a nuanced one because we work with a lot of systems when we get there that the accessibility compliance issues are baked in, and it takes some hard coding to address those across this site. But they can introduce legal issues too. So there's something that you want to elevate, even if you can't immediately fix them yourself. Outdated third-party tools or systems, and pages that just aren't worth the trouble. We all have one stakeholder or one department where you have to prepare yourself mentally to go in with suggested changes. And maybe that's going to require 5 rounds of review. So that might be something that you want to table for a later time. So it's all about looking at the trends and prioritizing the quick wins, but then also figuring out how you want to deal with the larger stuff too. All right, so congratulations, you saw users struggle, you ran your test. Now it's time to make it everybody else's problem. So what I'm really trying to say is that user testing builds empathy, but only if you share it. This is similar to the benefits that I talked about on the earlier slide. It aligns teams around real user needs. It shifts conversations from what we want to what they need. It turns invisible problems into undeniable ones. When you sit there and you watch with a team of people, a student who's struggling a lot to find a key piece of information that they insist is really easy to find, it has a lot of weight. and it builds urgency for change. It also saves you from arguing, which sometimes that's worth it in itself. Just play the video. The proof is in the footage or the notes that you've taken and you've shared. And from there, oftentimes you can get a lot of good leverage from that proof points, more so than you might be able to get with data from Google Analytics, because there's this human element to the research and testing that you're doing and the evidence that you're bringing to others. All right, quick bonus tips for UX overachievers. This is where you can start to build your bench of user testers. Students, parents, staff, alums, whoever your real users are, capture them along with contact information, maybe some key attributes if you have them, first-gen students, commuters, when and how they prefer to test. Use this to rotate participants in and avoid over-relying on people like Kyle from IT. And again, incentivize them once and they'll usually say yes again. So you want to make sure that you're not testing the same people over and over, but you might have a dedicated core team that you're rotating in and out when you need a quick gut check on a piece of functionality or a piece of content that you know will give you really valuable feedback and impressions. Something else you can do, if you are so inclined, is to build what I call a UX brain, or if you work in this industry, you might have heard it called a research repository. So collect all the information, track the changes that you made or didn't make and why. If you can benchmark the before and after with actual metrics, awesome. But you can also centralize user quotes, patterns, screenshots, all in a place that's centralized for you and your team, your web maintenance team, your team of stakeholders, so that you have an ever-growing library of user insights that you can refer back to when you've got a big strategic decision to make, or when you are making maintenance improvements on your website and you need to prioritize things that are actually going to have an impact on users. This upfront work can help you make more strategic decisions in the long run. All right, so your turn to share. For those who are brave enough to share, what is one action that you plan to take after this webinar? Are there any tips, tricks that you are hoping to implement in your work? Or maybe it's just a piece of software that you're hoping to check out. Read up on Microsoft Clarity. I've got another convert, Ryan. Look at Microsoft Clarity. I know it's a really good tool.
Yes.
The research report, go ahead.
Kelly, I was just going to say, I know you used to before Microsoft Clarity came along, and it hasn't been on the market for that long. I think Hotjar was what we were using mostly, and
Yeah.
they had a free version that was very limited. There is a paid version, but between those two, I don't want to speak for you, but do you have a opinion over MS Clarity versus Hotjar? I guess the price is included in that answer as well.
Yes, they all have strengths and weaknesses. Microsoft Clarity, just because it's free, it's so easy to implement, and it also integrates really nicely with analytics and other tools. That one's my favorite, but there's also Hotjar. It is a paid tool. It does have it would be a better fit, I think, for larger organizations that need some of that additional power and so the sophistication, and it has things like surveys you can embed in your website. And Crazy Egg is another one as well that has, to my knowledge, similar functionality to Hotjar. But they're all similar tools, just with their own strengths and price points. And the research repository Dovetail offers a free subscription tier if that is of interest to you. The user interface is tailored to product researchers, so it might seem a little complex, but if the idea of building this UX brain or this UX repository of insights excites you, that's a good tool to check out too. All right, now I'm going to get to the secret good stuff. Was tempted to put that gif of Ferris Bueller at the very end of the movie going, "You're still here?" See, we didn't have a lot of drop off, so that's good. Here's the UX secrets that I probably shouldn't be telling you, but I really like these, so I'm going to tell you anyway. Sign up for free trials of user testing platforms. A lot of the tools out there, when they give you a free trial, they'll give you actual test users. So real life people who will test your site. So look into it, use the trial wisely. One good test can help you understand how all of this works. It can help you understand, get insights on your website, of course, but it can also help you understand how to recruit for those types of users. The different tools will give you different levels of quality. And usually the really expensive ones are the tools that have the best users to draw from within the tool itself. But there are tools out there that do the recruitment for you. You have to pay for it. If there's a trial, though, use it to your advantage. And another tip that I do myself is become a user tester yourself. So tools like usertesting.com, you can sign up to be a user tester and you can experience the test from the other side of the seat. So this is like free research training. Plus you get to judge somebody else's confusing UI. And the last time I looked, they paid like $10 a test. So it's not a lucrative side hustle, but it is a good way to experience how other people run tests. And I've picked up some good tips and strategies this way, testing for other researchers. You can also test your competitors' sites. When I heard this tip myself, I thought, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Nobody is stopping you from user testing your competitors' sites. And this can be a good way to understand why your site, how users might experience a competitor's site over your site, what sorts of functionality benefits them, what sort of features do they find convenient that you might want to adopt, where can you stand out from that experience on your competitor's site. How does the brand positioning differ? There's a lot of different things you can learn, not just for the good feelings of watching other users struggle with another competitor's site, but a lot of good insights you can learn too. So don't leave that out of the mix if that sounds like a good fit for what you're trying to learn. All right, so this is my moment to say you can do it. I believe in you. Even if it still sounds complex and complicated, it is a really great way to learn and to make actionable changes that benefit the people that you are trying to serve every day. But if you don't have the time, energy, or desire to test, that's okay too. That's where we come in. I do this as often as I can, clearly, because I love it. I find a ton of value in it. And so I'm often working with clients to perform user testing on their sites, on competitive sites. We compare site designs, we analyze Microsoft Clarity recordings to make sure that at every step of the student journey and the user journey, the experience is a really positive one. And so with that said, we talked about different tips and tricks for understanding your options, prepping like it's peer reviewed, and then testing, learning, and repeating. Thanks for all the notes that you left in the webinar chat. And I'm going to open it up for questions now. If anybody else has questions. Ryan, I saw that you said there was a great comment about incentivizing users in here too. My university requires community service credits. We've done usability testing, offering 1 hour of community service credit, and you got a good response from students for participation. I never would have thought of that. That's a really good idea.
And just some housekeeping while we're waiting for some questions to roll in here. We did have we can make the recording we have recorded this, so the replay will be available. And if you want a copy of the PowerPoint or a PDF version of it, reach out. Kathy will get you that. That's no problem. And certainly connect with Kelly here. Feel free to contact me if there's questions you have on any of this. We'd be happy to talk to you about it. Yeah, don't feel shy to reach out. There's, I think, 21 participants on here. I think one is my mom, so plenty of room for everyone to send us notes and see what's going on.
But does your mom know about the back tattoo?
Yes, she does.
Yes, and please do reach out for a temporary tattoo. They're super fun, even if you just want to share them around your office or your team.
Great. Yeah, I think the only other question I saw in the chat and might have been rhetorical is not knowing how Microsoft Clarity even works. So it's not as creepy as it's not taking a screen recording per se. It's more tracking your mouse movements around the page, and then every time you click or move the mouse, it's kind of sending that information back to the server, and then it sort of recreates that experience and shows the mouse moving around, even though it's not a screen recording per se. So it's not as creepy as you might think. It's not definitely not recording your camera or anything like that. And they do have some really good documentation on their site about privacy and PII and being GDPR compliant and all those things that you would want to make sure. But to Kelly's point, if you are going to be using Microsoft Clarity, it's always something to add to your terms and conditions or your privacy policy to just let folks know that you're doing that. All right. Well, Kelly, I think you must have answered everyone's questions in real time.
Well, thanks so much for spending an hour with me on your Thursday afternoon. I appreciate all of you, and go do some tests.
Yep, and Kathy just confirmed we'll share the recording in deck next week, and be on the lookout in your email for future webinars that we'll be hosting, and hope you can make it. Talk to everyone later.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.